Let's begin by creating a new document. Go to Create New, then go to Print. Here you will see a whole selection of document sizes suitable for printing. View all presets, you'll be able to see more of them. The two most commonly used by us will be A4 and A3. Today we're going to use an A4. So click on A4. And before you create that, change the unit type from points to millimeters, and then hit create. Now, before we go any further, you should know the purpose of this video is really to give you some background information about the tools that will be used when you watch another video. A video made by Mark Rise. So he's a designer who uses Illustrator to make drawings of characters, just using basic geometric shapes. So we'll be watching his videos on this, but I would like to help you along by explaining some of the tools he does not explain. So the first thing to know is that we're going to be using the geometric shape palette, and that's the palette on the left hand side, and you'll be using the rectangle tool, the rounded rectangle tool, and the ellipse tool. Now when it comes to using the geometric shapes, it's important to note that there are a couple of special considerations when using the rounded rectangle tool and the ellipse tool. So let's start with the rounded rectangle tool. So if you were just to click without clicking and dragging, just clicking the mouse, what you'll get is this little window that is asking for information. The most important bit of information is the corner radius. My corner radius has been set at 40. I'd like it at 40 millimeters. I'd like for you to do the same. Now, if you haven't changed your units of measure to millimeters when you first created the document, you probably have point PT. Well, you may need to start all over again. Go back, create a new document. This is the easiest way for you to fix it. Otherwise, you've got to go through preferences, and really we don't have that kind of time. Just start a new document. This time, make sure your unit of measure is millimeters, not points. Okay, so when you're in this little window, just make sure the corner radius is at 40. I'm not sure what the default one is that you would have, but just change it to 40 and hit OK. And you don't need to keep that shape, whatever that shape is, but if you do want to keep it, you can make that shape bigger and smaller, and as you make it bigger and smaller, the corner radius will be proportional to that shape changing in scale. Okay, so that's the corner radius. Now if I was to do that again from scratch, I'll just delete this, hit the same tool, the rounded rectangle tool again, and this time I'm going to click and drag. By clicking and dragging, I now have that radius fixed, and just giving a general shape of a head, and that's all you need to know about the rounded rectangle tool. Is that the most important feature about it is the corners being rounded. Okay, now let's look at the ellipse tool. Now the ellipse tool is also the circle tool, but you will not get a circle if you just click and drag. The only way to have a circle is by holding Shift, clicking and dragging. That's how you get a perfect circle, holding the Shift key. Okay, so they're the two things to know about the basic shapes. If you go into the rectangle tool, the only way to get a square is by holding the Shift key as well. Okay, now the other thing to note is when you change the size of any object or any shape, let's try the circle. Let's make a circle, and let's say you want to change the shape. Now the only way to make sure you retain the proportions of the circle, that is height to width, remain the same, is by holding the shift key, clicking and dragging from a corner anchor, and you can then just change its scale, but it's proportional. It remains a circle. So this is true for everything that you do in Illustrator. Everything is kept proportional for as long as the shift key held down as you click and drag. Okay. Alrighty, now Mark Rise in his video only uses the fill. So far we've been looking at the stroke. Now we're just going to make artworks using the fill, which means we're going to knock out the stroke. Now you know about your swatches. So your swatches there's a whole range of colors that you can choose from, and there's also a color guide. Let me expand that. Color guide. These two things work in tandem. So for example, if I want to change the circle from a white fill to a color, then all I've got to do is either click on the fill square and the color picker comes up and I can select the color from there, or I can go to my swatches, or I can go to the color guide and select either a tint or a shade. Okay, so that's for the fill. Now you probably have noticed that there is still a stroke. Let me just make that stroke a little heavier. So we have a stroke and a fill. In these artworks made by Mark Rise, there is no stroke, so we need to knock out the stroke. So we go to the fill and stroke palette and bring the stroke to the top and then knock it out, and bring the fill back to the top again, because whenever we change color, the color changes on the top square, not the bottom one. Okay, so that's how we change our colors, by going to the stroke and fill and knocking out the stroke, because stroke will not be required. Okay, let's look at grouping and ungrouping of shapes. So let me just make some space here. Make some more shapes. I'm just going to copy and paste this shape. Command C, Command F. Or a quick way of doing it is holding down Alt or Option, and that enables you just to copy and paste at the same time. Okay, so I'd like to make this cloud shape. One more. And another one. Okay, so now I'll select the selection tool. I've got a whole bunch of circles. Now, if I want to move this around, I either select the whole thing, which can be a little tedious if you've got other things on that artboard, or I can select everything once and then go right click and group, or hit Command G. So that all that does is when I select one, it selects all. Now if I want to change this, I need to go to right click and ungroup, and that way I can treat each shape individually. Okay, let's talk about the alignment tool. Firstly, you'll find it at Window, Align, and we're looking at the first three of the alignment tool options. So select your shapes, and if you want to align these for one reason or another, you can hit the first one, which is the horizontal align. It gives you a horizontal alignment. The second one is a horizontal line in the center, and the last one is to the right. Okay. The next set is aligning things vertically. So what this does is when you have a particularly need to align things without having to try to guess where the center of things are, this will help you. So for example, I'll take this, Command C V, and I'll make a smaller version of the same, Command C F, make that smaller and change its color. Okay, so if we want to center these two objects to each other, we select both, then go to the Align tool and choose Horizontal Align Center, then Vertical Align Center. Okay, let's have a look at how we can arrange our shapes. Here we have an example, and we can see there's a lot of overlapping happening, but we may want to bring some shapes to the front and some shapes to the back. Well, the easiest way to do this, the shortcut, is by selecting the shape that you want to, for example, bring to the front. You hit the Command key or the Control key, and the square brackets, the open square brackets and the closed square brackets are your shortcuts. And you can bring things to the front by hitting the closed square bracket until you just click on the square bracket by holding down the Command or Control key until it's come to the front. And it's taking forever, mainly because I haven't selected anything. Let's select that. That's better. There we go. And it's coming to the front. Can you see how I can push things to the back? I can keep on going further back. That's the open bracket. The closed bracket brings it to the front. There we go. Now, that's the shortcut using the square brackets. However, you can also do this by Object, Arrange. You can go bring to front, bring forward, send back, or send backward, or send to back. So if I go send to back, it'll go right at the back. If I hit Object, Arrange, Send Backward, it takes it only one step back in relation to other shapes. So it's only one step at a time. So you can do that by Object, Arrange, or you can right click and scroll down to Arrange and do the same thing there. Send backward, and again send backward until you get to where you want it to be. So with any of these, as I said, the fastest way is by holding the Control or the Command key and hitting the square brackets, open or closed, and just keep on clicking on that. Find the Pathfinder tool, of course, under Window. Scroll down to Pathfinder. My Pathfinder is already open. Now, let's have a quick look at Pathfinder here. So Pathfinder has a whole range of ways it can treat two or more shapes. So the ones we're going to look at is the Unite, which is the first one in that first row, and the first one of the second row. So what can this do? Well, if we want to make a single shape out of all of these circles, we select all of them, then hit Unite. We now have one shape. It's just one shape. Okay. We can also intersect or divide all of these shapes. So hit Divide. Now, each time a shape has overlapped with another, there's a new shape that's been formed. So let me show you. I'll click away and ungroup, and then I can click off, click back on again, and you can see how each shape, wherever it intersected another shape, is an independent shape. Now, this is probably the fastest way you can make complex shapes, and that was the Divide tool in Pathfinder. I go to the Shape Builder tool, and I've selected the shapes I want to unite. All I've got to do is just wander through them with the tool, and they have now become one shape. I can use the same tool, Shape Builder, and I can subtract parts of the selection. So I'll hold down the Option key, first select Shape Builder, hold down the Option key or the Alt key, and I can now just delete parts of my selection. Okay, so that's the Shape Builder, which can unite or subtract parts of a selection. What you may want to do sometimes is to select individual objects. So the way to do this is by being on the selection tool firstly, then clicking on one shape. Then if you want to select one more shape, like in this case, I would like to select all the blue shapes. So I select my first one, I hold the Shift key and make my second selection, and holding the Shift key still, I make my third selection. And now I have a multiple selection. If I'm going to be using these in tandem, I could group them, or I could just set them aside away from the other objects and deal with them as I may. Okay, so this is the way to make multiple selections using the Shift key. This more or less covers all the tools Mark Rise uses in his video. I will post the video web link so you can visit his YouTube video, and you'll be able to follow his instructions, having known exactly how to use the tools that he uses in his video.